So I'm going to read a couple of poems from the last section of the book, and then I'm going to read some new work. This one's called From Bed to World is Ominous, and it's after The Woman Warrior by Maxine Hong Kingston. The journey from bed to world is ominous. The thin, gelid air of approaching winter suggests an impossible altitude. To rise is to accept the possibility. I could be heated to the point of burning by the friction of the atmosphere. I could fall at an impossible velocity, and I'll risk it for desiring you. One of us is inside the house. One of us is trembling in the flower bed, about to be caught by the sprinklers. Try to identify who is who, which is which. I resolve to make sounds, thinking sounds produce echoes, produce nothing useful, only evidence. Trees make fine companions. You don't have to approach them slowly. They accept everything you would give and take. Their progress is measured. They can learn to be predictable. For years it was force yourself again and can't recall in which direction. The important questions arise like a sermon that refuses to miss me. The villagers punished her for acting as if she could have a private life, secret apart from them. Penetrate has been haunting me year after year. Of late I am fascinated by its proximity to plunge, to say nothing of the relations between plunge and plummet. The difference between permeate and pervade is that the former is affecting a surface, the latter an area. A characteristic of penetrate is that it is affected upon a solid substance. For years, I was not a solid substance. Then you hardened me into a vessel. I can float now. I can take on cargo. Having an unkeepable sin, loss of wanting, undercuts complete. You can't see my heart until I pull it out of my throat. This one's called Still Waiting for Pirates. 1. We have to work within the degraded conditions in which we find ourselves. Armies of pots and pans catching the rain, knowing our lines are jumbled in a heap upon the floor. Being early involves waiting. The image just doesn't fit. A 2-year-old girl named Ocean, she could say zipper in that excited way children have who have yet to master the sentence. Strange bird, brown dot against blue, too fast to frame. With binocular lenses, we're told, return home. This is a book of contingency plans. In my head, the adults spent years of their lives as ghosts. They took turns. 2. You force yourself again and can't recall in which direction. The sawdust showing you secretly want to be brave but are not. The Tin Man asks, why do things one way and not the other? Errol Flynn replies, of course you prefer them, they have no thorns. Each star fell and filled the nothing. Her soft wings did not burn up in harmony. This body tells me we work together. Webbed paws denting upward, fumbling our way against slow descent. When we suddenly encounter another source of fear, when history is over, we continue in our passions and inclinations with no outlet in action. This is how I pretend we know each other. 3. With the gesture of waving, she thought she would make her house into a body. But houses are consuming things. They take as much as they give. They steal your patient bits as anything would that wants to be kept. Perhaps a great silence would interrupt this sadness, everything faking it so badly. Soon a man believes himself to be a lion, cold, damp, and rusty like a ship. That lion can fly. This one's called American Stories. The combustible skyline no longer forces me into whistling for every workaday bluebird. The Marmalade League will not be burned today. Thank you, Folly. Once upon a tender box, leaves through the backbone, past the doorman, next, soon and then, choose a winner. The beating of pigeon wings against the window panes, so many of them, the birds are going to get in. The birds are going to get in. This one's called Perhaps You'll Say. 1. Perhaps you'll say that's how it always begins, two perches lonely, vaguely searching for songbird. 2. Perhaps you'll say that's how always begins, two percussionists lonely, struggling to color in the bare spaceman, struggling to color in one barren-looking spaniel using a paint-by-number guide, struggling to trace a heart on the wing of a bare sparrow. 3. You'll say perhaps, look at that pair of vague perfectionists, pair of lonely performers, vaguely searching for sorrow, two peregrinations, let them be sick of the company, vaguely searching for sophistry, so it begins. 4. Perhaps you'll say, I pity the pair of them, always beginning, not knowing for what they searchlight, not knowing for what they seashore, not knowing for what they secretariat, not even knowing for what they have seated themselves waiting. 5. Perhaps you'll say, unable to fend off nostalgia, I knew he was the one, I knew she was the one, I knew it, insert name here equals 1. I meant to tell what dogs mean, what dogfights mean, what dogmas mean, but I had forgotten the language, so I stood there, letting the empty trendsetters whole food the symptoms, letting the empty treks whittle the sympathizers, letting them call me a footbridge, a foothold, a footpath, a footstep, a footstool. I sat there like a footstool, holding time in my hands, not knowing for what I waited. 6. Perhaps you'll say, let me give you some advice, but they are deaf, these lovers, caught in the act of catching hold, caught in the act of catching only, clutching at garrulous aircraft for company during descent. 7. Perhaps you'll say, I can't bear to watch these couplets year after year, praying for an antagonist, praying for an antibody, praying for an anticlimax. Do you remember what it means to pray? Did you ever understand it? You are new to me now. 8. Perhaps you'll say it begins, has to, we are starving for humble endings, and beginnings sow the seesaws. And one more. This one's called Advice from Seagulls. Milk-white foam dissolving into sand the color of coffee. Seagulls hold a caucus here, debate the issues of the day. Small boy barks at seagulls. Seagulls resume their meeting. Sand glistens at boy. Boy has no answer. Boy doesn't speak the language of sand. Seagulls squawk amongst themselves a while longer. Nothing is settled. They open their wings, the sky and wind, more fruitful conversations. Standing on the pier, I dream of breaking rules. No glass containers, no dogs allowed, no skates. I could glue wheels to my work boots, return to the pier carrying a tray filled with crystal flutes, a bottle of Dom Perignon to serve to the crab fishermen, adopt a husky to guide me across the concrete, become a human serving sled. It would give the boy someone to talk to. Instead, I write love letters to the mussels who live on the legs of the pier, tell them our attitudes are the same. We both inhabit the ebb and swell. My face muscles ache against the fierce wind, but I won't lower my head. I'm going to stand here until the seagulls teach me how to glide above Pacifica Pier. Don't flap your wings, they say. Pretend you are a stringless kite. I hold out my arms. I wait to be lifted. Thanks.